If this is your first video, welcome. It's also my first video. I want to plan a personal curriculum, a series of projects, goals, whatever you want to call it, for this winter so that I don't spend the next 4 or 5 months rotting. I'm ready to make some changes. I have been in a period of upheaval since like 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 were all like really big years for me in terms of like getting divorced and coming out as gay and meeting my new partner and moving in together. Like there was a lot of upheaval and change that was like ultimately very positive, but I was slightly burnt out from that as well, or just like, I don't even know if burnout is the right word, but like ready to be done with making big changes. Like I took a break from like a lot of self-development, self-help work. Like I just was like, I can't do anymore. And now I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I think I'm really going through what when I was coaching, I would kind of call midlife recentering. I don't like the word midlife crisis. I'm not in crisis, but there's definitely comes a point, especially for those of us with like uteruses and menstrual cycles, where there's that big hormonal shift into perimenopause and menopause. And with that comes a big internal identity shift. You're coming to the end of a season, and that season is like traditionally associated with the mother, if we're talking like maiden mother crone. Although cycle work, like menstrual cycle work, has a archetype in between mother and crone, which is enchantress. But anyways, you're coming to the end of a season. And so there's a shift into this new season of life. And I find in my experience as a coach and just like as a person who's going through this and has seen friends go through this, and seen clients go through this, there's a shift towards like, I've been paying attention to my identity as it relates to like who I was in my family and who I was as a kid and growing up, who I was told like I should be or I'm capable of being, or people like me, this is what we can do. And then you sort of grow up out of your childhood and you enter the world, and you're still paying attention to like, now who does the world think I should be? What does the world, what does society, what do the structures that we're living under tell me about myself and what I can do and people like me can do and what we're capable of and what's acceptable and what are the rules essentially for being a person like me with the, identities that I hold. And then there comes this point, this end of the season, and the shift is really a shedding of all of that. And it moves into, fuck, who am I? Like, I don't want to keep playing by these rules of a society that is not designed for women to thrive. And so often we have this baggage of like, oh, I've been trying to play by these rules, but the game is fucking rigged and I'm really tired of that. And now I want to be more myself. I have, the second half of life coming up, and I want that to be as full of life and joy and passion as it can be. And I want to feel the most me that I can be. In some ways, I think it's quite scary feeling like my life is half over, but time is a construct. and how we feel about time and how we move through time is very different. Throughout our life, we move through time very differently. Our 20s can feel like they go by in the blink of an eye. But if you think about how you kind of felt about time as a kid, so much happens in a year. When I say so much happens, I mean they grow taller, their brain develops, they're learning so much, they're like, a lot is happening to them. And then, that slows down as we hit our 20s and our 30s, but everything else gets really almost monotonous and I think busy. So it's just like this day to day of going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. And those years go by quite quick, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that the next 40 years of my life are going to go by super quick. It doesn't mean like it's all downhill. What I've read is a lot of people in their 60s and 70s and 80s, actually, their sense of time slows down again, that it becomes back to like when we were kids. And that a year feels like a very long time, and so much can happen in 5 years that it can feel like a whole lifetime. And so there's this author, Barbara Sher. So Barbara Sher wrote Wishcraft, How to Get What You Really Want. She's also written a couple of other books that I've really enjoyed. One of the things she talks about in this book is that we have 5 lives. If we grow up thinking that you can have one thing. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it's one thing. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an artist. I want to be a marine biologist. You grow up and you get one thing, one life. Barbara's point is that you can go be a marine biologist for 10 years and then be like, cool, I want to go be a bookstore owner. And then you could be a bookstore owner for 10 years. And then you could be like, right, I want to be an artist. And you could go be an artist for 10 years. And then you'd be like, right, I want to go live on a ranch. And you can go do that for 10 years. And you can have multiple lives. And then there's not a point where you're too old to have a new life. And I really love that, really resonate with that. I have been self-employed my whole life. I went to university, I studied mathematics, but then straight out of university, I started my own business and have built businesses, sold a business, built another business. Like, I have done many things and I have many certifications and qualifications, and I'm now doing another one. I'm training to be a qualified certified bookkeeper, and it's like another life. And I think there can be a lot of shame around that, because it can feel like I'm starting over. I've not actually accomplished anything. If I had just stuck to one thing, I'd be so much more successful. I don't know what measure of success that thought is looking for, but I don't think I would be happier if I had just stuck with one thing. I ended the things that I ended because I was no longer happy in them, that I feel like I had done what I wanted to do with those careers or those paths, and I was ready for a new one. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of where I am now, of like, I am starting a new life. I'm shedding some old stuff that no longer serves and starting anew. So that's kind of where I am. And I have already, this started maybe, let's say, 2 months ago, back in August. And I already am though feeling like, okay, you've said that you've like wanted to make these changes, but you haven't actually done anything. And I'm worried that if I don't start and if I don't formalize this in some way or have some accountability in some way, that it might be easy for like another 6 months to go by and I still haven't started. And that's okay. I'm not going to shame myself for that if that does happen, or like I'm not going to shame myself for these 2 months that have gone by, because I often find with change that it's a slowly, all of a sudden process. And I also find that sort of with big goals, there is kind of like, okay, I set the big goal and then you kind of freeze for a sec and like nothing changes, because it's like just like warming up or like resetting yourself to like deciding to make the change is a really big move. And it's really scary to be like, I want to leave this career and do something else. I want to really make a go of it as like an artist, and that feels vulnerable. And I want to try YouTube, even though I have like a lot of thoughts about why I'm terrible at it and why no one will watch videos from me. And like, it's really scary to admit to a desire. When I was working as a coach, the kind of first point in change that I see with people think it's the action, but the first point for change that I would see in people is admitting that things weren't fine and admitting they wanted something else. That's the actual start of the change process. It doesn't start with the big actions. It doesn't start with like I have this goal and these are the 10 steps. It just starts with admitting I don't think I'm as happy as I want to be. That is a very brave and bold step. And then it's really normal that nothing else changes for some period of time, weeks, months, because admitting that was already such a big step that it's like, okay, I have to restudy myself. But I know myself and I know we're coming into winter and I get pretty bad seasonal depression and I don't want to just rot away this winter. I think if I give myself some framework, some containers, something to work on, that will be really good for me and my mental health. Okay, so what do I want to work on specifically? I have it in my little notebook. So YouTube launch is one of them. I really want to commit to making weekly videos and commit to this journey for at least 6 months because it's really hard for me to get started with things when I'm not good at them. And I know that I'm not the best I can be. Like, I know I don't want to like talk down on myself and be like, I'm not good at making videos. But like, I know that I'm not living up to the standards that I have in my head, and that makes me really frustrated. So I just need to get through the bit where it's hard because I'm bad. Things that are hard are fine, but like things that are hard because I'm bad at them make me want to quit. So we're going to try and get through this bit. But that's one of the things, the like projects I'd really like to work on is like figuring out what kind of videos I like to make. How do I like to make videos? Like, what is my process? Am I just doing mainly talking head, like talking to camera videos? Do I want to try vlogging? I kind of am envisioning this right now as like a documenting this process of change, of like using this as accountability, of talking to people about things I learn, talking about creativity and perfectionism and trying to make it as an artist, talking about books and storytelling and how we use stories to like understand ourselves better. So trying to figure out how I make videos. Related to that, I also want to have some sense of creative discovery. That's kind of what I named it, and that's not really a good title, but want to play around with making zines, making art. I really love lino cutting. Again, I'm really bad at it, and I just like then resist practicing because I hate being bad at things, but I would love to like figure out. There's this thing both with YouTube and with art where I'm like, I want to figure out what I actually like versus what I perceive as cool and therefore desirable. I don't know if you can relate to this, but like the best analogy I have is like, as a woman who's attracted to other women, there's this thing that happens where you're like, you see someone, maybe it's like in a movie, in a magazine, or like on the street or something, you see someone and you like, there's this longing that you have towards that person. And then you have to think, do I have this longing because I want to be like them? Like there's some part of them that I see and I'm like, that's appealing for me. I want to have that haircut. I want to dress like that. I wish I could express myself like they do. Like, is it a longing as in there's something about them that I want for myself? Or do I want to be with them? Am I attracted to them and attracted to that haircut and to that way of dressing? It's not for me. I'm just attracted to it. And that's what I'm trying to figure out with like YouTube and like art specifically. Like, what is it? I watch a lot of YouTube. I follow a lot of artists. I love the work that some people are creating. I love like the videos that I watch. And I think people are so creative and just like self-expressive, and I just like there's a lot that I look at and I think, oh, I really love that, but I'm not able to yet really have a sense of what I love for me. I want to do that. I want to do the life of a YouTuber. I want to do the life of a book reviewer. I want to do the life of a lino cut artist, whatever. I don't know what I want to, what is it that I want to do for myself versus like, what am I just attracted to? So it's like, okay, what is for me? And then what is, I'm like, oh, I'm attracted to that, but it's not for me. That's where I'm really trying to figure out with like YouTube and creativity. And then also the like third pillar of like this triangle. Do triangles have pillars? I don't think so. The third side to this triangle is like thought and idea nurture. So I want to get back in the habit of having thoughts about things that I read, that I watch, that I hear, that I listen to, and I want to use those thoughts to generate more thoughts and generate that into written word, visual storytelling, like the things that I'm then producing. I've been consuming very mindlessly for the past at least 3 years, if not longer. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not passing judgment on that. But when I say consuming mindlessly, I mean I've just been consuming and not like digesting and composting and allowing those thoughts to expand into more thoughts and allowing myself to have original thoughts and ideas. I read so many great books, particularly like nonfiction books. I couldn't tell you a single thing because I've just like read them, but I didn't like consume them in a way that like becomes part of my DNA. And I used to do that and I miss that. I'm quite like an academic person. I loved school. I loved university. I love learning. And I just want to get back to that. And I think I've lost it. And it's easy to feel like, especially with like the brain fog of long COVID, it's easy to feel like I've lost it for good. I think it's probably just like a very natural part of life, but I don't want to continue down this path. So I'm like, okay, we got to get back into having thoughts about things that we read. And then the last two things are probably not going to be as mentioned on this channel as much, but doing my bookkeeping certification, I've done 1 exam out of 8. And just for like context, so the idea is that I need an income. Like I have to pay bills. And I have worked with creatives for 20 years. Well, I have been a creative for 20 years. I have worked with creatives, let's say, for 15. And I know the trap of when you try to make your art pay your bills. It sucks everything joyful and fun about the art away because you have to produce for the purpose of making money rather than produce for the purpose of making joy and fun. And ideally, in the end game, what is joyful and fun makes money, but it is not at the start. And it can be too easy to fall into the trap of like, if I'm like, YouTube has to make money, I will make videos for the algorithm instead of making videos for myself. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to make art for what I think people want from me. This really needs to come, like this art and creative self-expression needs to come from me first. And I need to make, especially as I'm trying to, as I say, find like what is fun for me, what is joyful for me. I can't do that and also try and have that make money. And so I need something that makes money. My previous work has been as a life coach, specifically as like a transformation coach for creative entrepreneurs. But that work takes everything from me. It is, particularly for me, very, very energetically draining and creatively draining, and doesn't really leave me with the spoons to do this work, the creative work, the YouTube work, all of that. And so I need something that's a little bit, that's using a completely different part of my brain. And so for various reasons that I don't need to go into, bookkeeping is where I've landed, being a bookkeeper specifically for like self-employed folks. And so that is what I'm using to balance the art and the creativity. So I need to get this certification completed, and I'd ideally like to do this before January. That is a very, very tight timeline for the amount of exams I have to do. So I don't know if that's going to happen. My backup plan is launching for April. So fingers crossed, we'll see how that goes. The next steps is I need to break these down into something a little bit more tangible in terms of like, what does, I talked about thought and idea nurture. Like, okay, that's a great goal in terms of like, I know what it looks like and I have a good idea of like what that means to me, but it is not tangible. I can't tick that off. And I haven't identified like what's the gap between where I am now and where I want to be. What are the skills I need to develop, or what are the habits I need to develop? So for example, I know that like book annotating is one thing I really want to get into, or like a commonplace system or something like that, so that I'm reading and taking a quote and putting that on a piece of paper and then having thoughts about that, and then, how do I then go from thoughts about that to turning that into a video? So I think there's a lot about like systems and habits that I want to work on, but I'm going to break that down, and we'll do that maybe in another video, or I'll come back when I've done that and talk you through it. But for now, you made it to the end of my first video. I made it to the end of my first video. I'm committed to just lightly editing this and putting this up because I have filmed, not gonna lie, 4 or 5 videos, and I just hated all the footage and deleted it and got really in my head about it. And so I'm trying not to do that, and I'm trying to make this commitment to like, it's bad, it's rough, it is what it is. We're just putting it up and we're moving on to the next one. So with that said, I'll see you in the next one.